Hey guys, I have been looking at belt grinders and they are crazy expensive. I mean, crazy expensive. So here's one for $1,000 right here. This one looks like they're selling just accessories for 50, but here's another one for 650 bucks. This is just the plans. Here's another one for $1,700. Here's one you got to put together yourself for $500. It is just wild how much these things cost. I know I can beat that as far as building one myself. So I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something together that I can have that may not be as fancy as a lot of these options, but will work as a nice belt grinder and will cost a fraction of the money. All right, skip ahead a little bit. After a few hours of work in some CAD, this is what I have come up with. So this is going to be kind of the general concept for what I'm going to do to build my own belt grinder. Now, I have designed this using mostly material that I already have on hand. So I'm not going to say that this would be the ideal material to use for a belt grinder, but a lot of this stuff I already have. So for instance, in all of these kind of light green, mint green colors, that's 1¼ inch box tube, and I have a ton of 1¼ inch 12 gauge that I've had from lots of other projects laying around. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to use that up. Here in the purple, this is 1¼ inch or this is 1.5 inch, and then this is 1¼ inch 3/16 flat bar. I have a bunch of 1.5 inch and 1¼ inch 3/16 flat bar laying around, so I don't have to buy any of that. This stuff that you see in yellow, this is some 5/8 plate. I don't have any 5/8 plate, but what I have is I have this scrap of machinery or tractor component. I don't remember where I got it, but it's been laying around and I just have it, and I'm going to cut it up in order to make these pieces. And then this last piece right here, this yellow piece, this is 3/16 plate. I have like a 3 foot by 3 foot chunk of 3/16 plate. And I have some 1 inch by 2 inch C-channel all laying around. So that makes up the bulk of the material. What I'm missing is these things that you see in red here, the things that you see in red. And I should mention the motor. I picked up a motor at a garage sale. The guy said it didn't work, but it was actually just wired for 220. I just rewired it for 120 and it works fine. So I actually have a motor that I picked up super cheap from a garage sale. These red pieces, which I'm going to make out of 3/8 plate, are the only things that maybe aren't 100% fair for other DIYers wanting to build this at home. These are kind of the shapes that I came up with. All of these shapes would be pretty easy to form with just hand tools, so like a cutoff wheel and an angle grinder. I even made this one, designed it so you could cut it out of a piece of 3-inch flat bar if you wanted. So these, like I said, would be pretty easy to make by using just hand tools. The only really challenging one to make is going to be this one right here, in which you have this kind of arced slot. This would be challenging to cut by hand. On all of these, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use a CNC plasma table at my local community college, so I have access to that. So I'm going to go ahead and use a plasma table to cut all these shapes out. But other than that, all of these other materials I have on hand, with the exception of the wheel set. And the wheel set, you can pick them up on Amazon. I picked up a 2x72 belt grinder set or wheel set off of Amazon for like $45. So there it is. Let's see if I can get it put together. Here is the base of the grinder all welded together. So you watched me make these kind of tubes right here. I welded the hinges on them. What I've added is I've added some vertical kind of legs and some feet. What I have not showed you, and kind of the whole intent of this belt grinder, is you're probably thinking, why are we building this hinge? What's the whole point of this hinge deal? Doesn't seem necessary. So the next thing I've put together is I've put together the kind of the guide wheels and the slave plate that will go behind the belts. Get that stabbed into here. So that's all assembled like that. So we're starting to get a belt grinder put together. This is how the grinder will sit in kind of its normal position. I'm gonna have the tool rest is gonna mount right here. And then there's gonna be this piece of plate, which I'll carve out of that, but it'll sit something like that. So that'll be how the tool rest sits for you to be able to use this grinder. If you decide that for whatever reason you don't want the belt grinder to be going vertically, you're gonna be able to take this out, and then this whole thing pivots on the hinges, and now the belt will run horizontally. So everything for the belt mount, so the motor, these front wheels, and the tensioner arm, which is going to be mounted up here, are all on this movable tube. Everything will pivot. Okay, so here is the final mechanism roughed into place. So this tube right here is still way too long. I'm gonna have to cut it to its final length once I finish up the tilt adjustment or the tracking adjustment for the tracking wheel. But here is kind of how the mechanism works. There's gonna be a spring that runs from here down to that piece of channel that is holding up the motor. And that spring will keep tension, which will keep that tracking pulley tight against the belt. All right, so now you can get a much better idea of how the tensioner pulley slash tracking pulley was going to work. So we have this arm here, which is on this pivot right here. And when you pull it down, you stretch this spring back here in order to provide belt tension. At the same time, I was going to use this in order to adjust the tracking pulley. So you have this plate right here, and as you wind it in, I can adjust the tilt of this, or of the pulley. The problem was, I thought I was going to get away with being able to use one of these weld-on hinges. So you just weld one side there, and you have yourself a hinge instead of making my own hinge. But there is way too much slop in this hinge for it to work. So when I put the belt on, it's trying to pull the pulley, it's trying to tilt the pulley back. So now the tracking pulley kicks off at an angle and it wants to run the belt off the side. So I have to do something better than that hinge. So I gotta cut that off and try something else. All right, so these hinges consist of a peg side, I can get it to focus, a peg side, and then a hollow side that they fit together like this and they swivel in between. Now, the hole on this hollow side is bigger than 5/16 but smaller than 3/8. So that's going to be 11/32 or whatever, so something like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take two of these hollow sides and I'm going to drill them all the way through to 3/8, and then I'm going to cut them in half to give me 4 hollow pieces. And then I'll use the 4 hollow pieces to make a more robust hinge, and I'll just pass a 3/8 bolt all the way through. And just like that, we went from a 2-knuckle weld-on hinge with kind of the integral pin inside to a 4-knuckle weld-on hinge with much tighter tolerances between the hole and the bolt. So this, I'm hoping, will remove all the play out of that pivoting location. All right, and here is going to be our first run. It makes a lot of noise, so I did just run it and it's working good. It makes a lot of noise, so I want you to watch what I'm gonna do with the tracking wheel, that top wheel on that spring-loaded arm. So watch what I'm gonna do and I'll show you how it works and how we can move the belt. So I go over here, my home light switch power job. It kicks on and it runs good. And if I wanna adjust where the belt is, I have this screw here, and I can run it either way based off of where I have this screw running. That is 3/16 plate. I could put a coarser belt on and take a lot more material away much more quickly. I added just a little bit of a belt guide here for this belt. It's on this same thing that the track and pulley rides on. So I welded just a little bit of a belt guide on there, and that marks all of the fabrication done for the belt grinder. So we just have to do a bunch of cleanup, grinding, wire wheeling, and paint it, put it back together, which is super boring to watch, so here it is. So got it all painted and put back together, made 2 other real minor changes on both that track and pulley arm, and on the bottom I welded one of these coupling nuts, one of the coupling nuts here, and I got these plastic threaded handles. So this handle right here gives you something to pull on to really help you stretch that spring when you need to change the belt. So that really makes changing the belt a lot easier. And same thing, I have one here, and this one is so that you have something to grab when you take the whole thing and you flip it sideways. So this will give you a grip point, a good thing to hold as you flip. But here we go, here it is all put together, all assembled. And so once again, you can kick it on. And it runs just like so. You would tighten, or you would make the tool rest come in tight, and you would tighten it down. There's the tool rest. You have this handle for this, but then you have this other plastic handle which adjusts the track and pulley, so it's riding kind of high. So let's run her back down. And you can use that to adjust where the belt rides on the back plates. And once I stop it, you can then, you would remove the tool rest, and I will loosen these 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that allows the whole assembly to rotate. And that was what it looks like running in the horizontal position. So now you can finally see in the horizontal position, the tool rest is at the height such that it's right up here underneath the belt. So you can rest something on it, and you can use this horizontal belt in order to grind something in this direction as well. I don't know how often I'll use it in this orientation, but it seemed like kind of a fun challenge to make one that would work. Now, the next big question is, did I meet my objective and save some money? And I can wholeheartedly say that yes, I did. So how much am I into this belt grinder? Once again, the motor I picked up at a garage sale. The guy said it did not run, but it was just wired for $220, so I am $20 into that. The wheel set on Amazon, I think, was $45. Let's just go with 50 with tax to make it nice and easy. So if we have 50 plus 20, I'm $70 into it. The steel was actually all stuff that I had, so the only other things that I had to buy was the hardware, and hardware is going to be the bolts and the handles and the weld-on hinges and the spring and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be let's be generous and say I spent $30 on hardware. So that's going to put me right at $100. That was what I had to pay out of pocket. Now, of course, I had an advantage because I had so much of this stuff on hand, like all the plate and the box tube. I have the electrical stuff already as well. So I'm $100 into it, but I bet you could build this yourself for $200 if you were really interested. If you had to go buy all the steel, I bet you'd have to probably buy about $100 in steel. So $200 to make one yourself, which is certainly cheaper than $1,000. Well, that is where I'm going to end the video. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this gives you some ideas for you to build something cool in your shop.